to me here to Margate to come and speak to you all. Thank you everyone for coming and making the trip today, and thank you for your interest. I'll try and talk. This is actually about a 2-hour talk, which I'm going to skip over, probably therefore skip over about half of it. I think I'll try and go for about an hour and then maybe take some questions. It is on the internet. There's a couple of slides I've added. This is basically on the internet. I've got a table back there. I've got several books here today which might interest you. Dr. Judy Wood's book, Where Did the Towers Go?, described as the most important book of the 21st century. I've got 3 copies of that, £25. That saves the postage, which is normally £5 for postage. I've been distributing that book for about 4 years now. And I've also got a couple of other books. Marcus Allen mentioned Stanley Kubrick in relation to the moon landings. I've got a book there by Carl James, which is called Science Fiction and the Hidden Global Agenda. Anybody who likes science fiction and is interested in the hidden truths that we've been subjected to or been hidden from us, I'll enjoy that book. It is available for download free as a PDF file from my website, which is checktheevidence.com. I've also got lots of DVDs. Pretty much all of that's online. DVDs 50p. I've got a few booklets, 50p for the booklets, and leaflets if you want to take leaflets. So, my background, basically, I work part-time for the Open University. I do some distance learning tuition. I do face-to-face tutorials occasionally, and I do assessments for disabled students. That's how I earn my living. I spend a lot of time working at home, which gives me time to look into all of this, and I haven't got anybody breathing down my neck. As long as I send in my reports within 7 days, I don't get any questions asked about what I'm doing, so I can do what the hell I like, basically, which is pretty good. So I'm going to try and go through this, as I say, and skip over some things, so I apologise for that. We're going to try and look at this, in this presentation, about, we're going to look at data, scientific data about Mars, Phobos, I forget time, Iapetus, the Sun, and we're going to ask, are most scientists deliberately ignoring the most intriguing data which we've got about these bodies? Does the data indicate life and intelligence, past or present, elsewhere in the solar system? Now, because today's theme is the moon, I thought I'd put in literally 2 or 3 slides of lunar anomalies. It's not a big part of this talk, a very small part, but there are some lunar anomalies. For example, this one, and as you see, this is on Arizona State University. This is a NASA image. It's from Lunar Orbiter 3, which Marcus also mentioned in his talk in 1967. How come we've got a hexagonal crater? Why is this crater hexagonal? I only stumbled across this image quite recently. I can't remember even what I was looking at. But I've got links, all these. If anybody wants any information about any of this, just write to me through my website, and I'll send you whatever links, answer whatever questions you have. So why have we got this hexagonal crater? I don't know. I'm just asking the question. Here's another one. This is the Ukert crater. This is an image from an Earth-based telescope taken in January 2012 from Greece, Alexandroupolis, and that's the Democritus Observatory. And this is one of the images from the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter camera, which is also what Mark's mentioned, and it's this is also the Ukert crater. What causes this unusual shape? Is it indeed, as Marcus I think started to talk about, created by electrical discharge rather than created by an impact or multiple impacts? Don't know. But there are these anomalies and they tend not to be talked about. And then this one is from the Chandrayaan probe, which is India's first lunar orbiter. And I came across this quite recently. It was taken on the 16th of November 2008, so it's relatively recent compared to Apollo. What's this thing here, which is actually on this part of the image here? This is a long strip of 3 images, red, green and blue filters. And when I actually accessed the link for this, it had disappeared. I had to retrieve this from the Internet Archive. So what is this structure here? Don't know. So there are lunar anomalies, but there don't seem to be nearly as many lunar anomalies, in my experience, as there are from Mars. So we're going to talk about Mars now for a few minutes. Mars, you can see here, it's about roughly 1/3 the size of the Earth. Was about half the equatorial radius, but I think the volume that works out to be a third. In fact, it's 15% volume of the Earth. And the density is about 0.7 of the Earth, and the surface gravity is about 35% of what's on Earth. So I think it's our second nearest planet. Venus is the nearest most of the time, and Mars is the second nearest. And actually, there's been a lot of interest in Mars over the years. A flotilla of space probes have visited. Over 50 have been to Mars now. The first attempt was made in the Russian Marsnik program with Marsnik 1 in 1960. Early attempts failed. Mariner 4 was the first successful probe. The flyby took place in July 1965, and that was actually covered on radio by a chap going by the name of Richard Hoagland, who I've probably mentioned quite a few times in this presentation. A man I'm afraid I don't totally trust. There have been over 50 mission attempts, with a number of failed and aborted missions, both from the USA and Russia. The most sophisticated attempt to date is the current Curiosity rover, which, if you watched Richard D. Hall's program a few weeks ago, maybe a couple of months ago now, you will find out a bit more about that, and I will mention a bit about that, but it's not the main subject of this presentation. This is one of the successful Mariner mission pictures from Mariner 4. And the story starts to get more interesting with the Viking lander. Viking 1 and 2, each consisting of an orbiter and a lander. The primary mission objectives were to obtain high-resolution images of the Martian surface, characterize the structure and composition of the atmosphere and surface, and search for evidence of life. Search for evidence of life. We never stop hearing about this. Is there life on Mars? This question always popping up, as you'll see. Viking 1 was launched in 1975, August 20th, and it arrived on Mars in June 1976. Allegedly arrived on Mars, perhaps you might say. Viking 2 was launched on September 9, 1975, arrived at Mars on 8th of July 1976. Total cost of the Viking project was roughly $1 billion, and this is almost 40 years ago now. Again, an awful lot of money just for some unmanned probes. $1 billion. And you might remember possibly, as I do, the guy who designed this arm, which was an arm which came out of the Viking probe, dug into the Martian dust, retracted, dropped the dust into a chemical laboratory which was on board the spacecraft, and then took some readings of gases that came off from the dust going into this mixture. The guy that designed this arm was British, and he was on Blue Peter, I remember, many years ago. But the experiment which actually tried to detect life was designed by this chap, Gilbert Levin, and well, I won't talk much about it now, so I've got a video clip that I'm going to show later where this will get discussed. But he designed it. He said that when the experiment was run on Mars, it detected living microorganisms in the soil. That's what he originally said. And a year after he said that, NASA said, no, those results were wrong. We didn't discover any life. That's basically what they said. We hear all that. I'm going to show you the video clip shortly. Next strange thing was that Richard Hoagland told this story that when he was in mission control, the original Martian image showed sort of like a bluish grey sky, and then somebody went down mission control and they changed all the monitors and changed it into a red sky. Why would they do that? And that story is told in this book, Mars, a Living Planet, by Barry E. Gregorio and Dr. Gilbert Levin, the guy who designed the light detection experiment. Now, so we've already got questions arising about what is the colour of the sky on Mars. Are these images being falsified? Well, the answer seems to be pretty much yes, because Holger Isenberg, I think he's German, he has a website called marsnews.de. He took the original Viking lander images, which took 3 images to make one colour image, one through a red filter, one through a green, one through a blue filter. You combine them to get a colour image. He downloaded the original red, green and blue images. He worked out the filter specification that NASA used on the cameras, or on the camera for those images, and then he put the images in Photoshop, put the filter specifications in Photoshop, recombined the image, and that's the image that he got, which is rather strange, and Mars is supposed to have a red sky. So, we're going to go on and talk a little bit more about this with a clip from the BBC.
There's a terrific piece of information coming in. Say something to it. Yeah, I'm supposed to say something at this point. I just don't feel like talking. There are rocks, yes, there's rocks, and there's several, but it's just incredible to see that the Mars is really there. Instant interpretation is always a little bit hazardous. Nonetheless, many of these boulders do look very similar to the ones that we've seen in desert region. Some of these boulders may be vesicular, that is, basaltic rocks, possibly volcanic rocks that have solidified in a gas-charged environment and then these gases produce vesicular holes. Just looks like that. Perfect set down.
The first picture of the Martian panorama.
As you look at the field of view in general, I think the most striking impression is one of a lot of rocks. And this automatically brings to mind the fact that we had a good deal of luck, because some of these rocks are about 2-3 meters across, and had the spacecraft landed on those rocks, it would have been disabled, probably permanently disabled.
Later high-resolution pictures confirmed the rocks were volcanic, but lying on dunes of fine sand. On the second day, the first pictures in color. Mars was indeed the red planet, or at any rate, blue-red. But the colors were false. It was noticed that one of the cables on the spacecraft wasn't orange enough. The color was corrected, and Mars turned even redder. The reason for their mistake? The sky. Everyone had assumed it would be blue like on Earth. But on Mars, scattered dust turns the sky pink and makes sunsets purple.
Something is not right with that clip. Now, you may recognise the voice of the narrator as one William Franklin, because what you were actually seeing there was, I think, a documentary made in about 1979, 1980, that sort of time. What you saw was a clip I'd taken out of a rebroadcast of that 30 years later in 2009. Right? But they said in that clip, the cable, the orange cable, wasn't orange enough. Right? And so that's why they changed the colour of the image. What they didn't tell you was that Viking actually has its own colour calibration charts on the actual image. And you can see them here. So why is the BBC documentary, which is, has budgets of tens of thousands of pounds, maybe more, not able to research that the colour of the cable has nothing to do with how they judge the colour of an image? They have calibration charts on the probe. I was able to find that out. It's actually in Dr. Gilbert Levin's document, because he's done a study of the colours as well. So basically, the long and the short of that is NASA is lying about the colour of the sky on Mars. It's lying, like with Apollo, it's producing false images to make us believe something other than the truth. And then here too, you can see that you've got this colour calibration chart. Now on the right here, this is taken on Earth, and draw your attention to this particular one here. This is a blue calibration paper. If you shine red light, which is likely the light gets reddened as it's coming through the Martian atmosphere, onto blue paper, you don't end up with a red piece of paper. It will look a blue, sort of muddy grey, something like that, because it's colour by subtraction. When you shine red light onto blue paper, you're going to end up with something that looks very dark, not red. So that has been created with colour substitution. And they give all these various explanations, which I haven't got time to go into right now. So we'll switch to another image from a completely different perspective. This is a Mars Express image. In 2003, European Space Agency launched Mars Express, and that's been still in orbit, still sending back pictures. So why would it be that this is allegedly a picture of some ice in a Martian crater? Why is that blue? Could it be, for example, reflecting the colour of the sky? And in fact, at this point I'll pause because a chap that I know, he's made a very good point that if Mars has a thin atmosphere, then it wouldn't be able to be blue anyway because there wouldn't be enough molecules in the atmosphere to scatter the light, which is why it's blue, the sky is blue on Earth, because the light gets scattered, sunlight gets scattered. It's called rain scattering. So on Mars, you should actually have you should almost look like you're looking into space because the atmosphere is so thin. Similarly, you get images like this, where we've got a Mars Express image on the left, and you've got the Mars Global Surveyor image, which is one of the American probes, on the right. And you'll find that a large preponderance of these NASA images, even the Curiosity ones, are still black and white images. Not all of them, but a large preponderance of the ones that you see are black and white. Doesn't really make a lot of sense. Now, some have argued that what they've done is they've set the filters so that it will filter out any sort of essence of chlorophyll. Chlorophyll. Anyone know what chlorophyll is? It's in plants, it's in grass, etc. It's what's used for photosynthesis. So they're trying to keep that idea out of the picture. So what we found that life was discovered on Mars again. It was announced in 1976 or 77 originally, and they said it wasn't life, it was a mistake. But in 2004, Professor Vittorio Formisano said that Mars Express instrumentation had detected ammonia, methane, and even formaldehyde in the Martian atmosphere. These are biomarker gases indicating ongoing life processes. Formisano said, "My observations should not be taken as a statement that there is life on Mars today, because we need to go there to drill the soil, take samples, and analyse them before concluding, possibly, that life is there." Formisano had forgotten about the Viking experiment and Dr. Levin's label release experiment 29 years earlier. I think that's a fair question. And then we have that life was discovered on Mars again, 5 years later, 15th of January 2009. Martian methane reveals the red planet is not a dead planet. That was NASA's headline, which was repeated in the Belfast Telegraph and other publications. That was the first one I found when I looked for this in 2009. So is there life on Mars or isn't there? And then we had methane on Mars discovered again. For the third time it's been discovered on Mars. The 4th of December 2012, Wired magazine reports Curiosity rover detects water and organic compounds on Mars. The rover also detected the first organic compounds in the form of chlorinated methane created during the sample analysis within Sample on a Mars tool. However, while the chlorine is definitely from Mars, the carbon might be of more earthly origin carried to the planet by the rover, so they say. Then on the 13th of December, a few days later, just over a week later, Discovery News reports, "Where's Mars' methane? Curiosity draws a blank." So they flip back again. September 2013. NASA says there is no life on Mars. There's a story from the Daily Mail. So we're getting this flip-flopping every few years. Yes, there is life on Mars. No, there isn't. What's going on? And then, a year later, December 16th, 2014, Curiosity detects methane spike on Mars from the NASA website. So we're back to the same position again. Why is this? What's going on? Well, how about this? Well, now I'm going to play a short video mainly by Ron Bennett. And
I believe that Viking found life, and I think that, maybe not intentionally, but scientists painted the wrong picture of what happened. You know, the message was put out that Viking found nothing more than unusual active chemicals in the soil, that basically Mars was dead, and that had a profound effect on everything that's followed, including the direction of the two biology labs. Outside the microwave oven, it was quite small. But they had 3 experiments which were looking directly for life on Mars, and they were the first spacecraft to do this, and incredibly, the only spacecraft that have ever looked for life on another planet. In the 30-odd years since then, we've never sent out another probe to look for life, and that's because the mainstream science said Viking didn't find anything. So, they carried out some experiments. I just want to zero in a couple of them. One was called the label release experiment, one was called a paralytic release. And the agreement was beforehand, if any of these experiments found a positive signal, then we would say that they found life on Mars, and that was thrown out the window later on. So what the label release experiment did was it took a sample of Martian soil, it put some water onto it, some goodies, some nutrients, kind of like a chicken soup type of thing for bacteria. And the neat thing was that those nutrients were laced with radioactive carbon. And the hope was that any bugs in the soil would metabolize that food and they'd give off radioactive carbon dioxide, which you could then pick up with a radiation detector, Geiger counter. And lo and behold, that's exactly what it found. A big rush of radioactive carbon dioxide, which lasted for about 3 days. Exactly what you'd expect if there were bacteria in the soil. And not what you'd expect if there was a chemical reaction. It wouldn't last that long, there's no way. The other experiment, the paralytic release experiment, showed that organic chemicals were manufactured in the soil by something. That's kind of hard to explain without life going on. And these two together gave life signals. So why didn't scientists say that Viking had found life? Because according to the pre-agreed criteria before Viking ever left the launch pad, both of those experiments found life. The reason was there was another instrument on board Viking, which was called the GCMS. That stands for Gas Chromatograph Mass Spectrometer, and the whole purpose of that instrument was to look for organic material, anything containing carbon, basically, in the Martian soil. And that came up negative. It didn't find a single thing. It didn't find a single carbon-containing molecule in the soil. And it was used as a core to the field, basically. So you've got 2 experiments saying, yeah, there's life here by pre-agreed criteria. Another instance says there can't be life. No organics, you can't have life. But that instrument wasn't working properly. And we know it wasn't working properly. It's been demonstrated. It was demonstrated even before Viking took off, although it wasn't really well known or advertised. But in several studies since then, identical equipment to the GCMS been tested on Antarctic soils, soils from deserts, regions on Earth which are similar to Mars, and it has failed to find life where we know there is life by other instruments. And so this core to appeal instrument was faulty. We know it couldn't detect the organic material on Mars, and yet that's the way it panned out. The scientists used that as a way to say there's no life on Mars. So the GCMS found nothing, and so what does the Viking scientists team do? They dismissed the positive readings of the other 2 experiments. And they said that the activity in the soil was due to some kind of reactive chemical like hydrogen peroxide, and that was that.
Now, just to explain that a little bit, that was from another lander which landed on the Mars polar regions, the Phoenix lander. And that video that you saw there, the stop frame animation, was done by an amateur researcher. That wasn't created by anyone from NASA. So what exactly were we seeing with those things moving? It was like little bugs or something. We don't know what they are. But that was discovered by Ron Bennett. It wasn't discovered by NASA. He was just using their data. So why aren't NASA doing these studies? Why aren't they doing this sort of thing on the data? And he ruled out the idea that these things were being blown by wind, because some of them were like half an hour apart, so you could clearly see that this wasn't wind in most of them, if not all of those images. And as Mark's alluded to, you do find images like this. Just what's this? Just lying about. And there are many. There are lots of YouTube videos. There's a bit of a mixed bag actually. Some of them are, you can't see anything. And you get these people saying, "Oh, here's the giraffe and here's the rhinoceros," and I can't see what they're on about. Some of them like this, you can clearly see whatever that is it just a random rock pile? Maybe it is. But this is more a detailed study done by Charles Schultz, US scientist and researcher. He actually worked for on the Pershing cruise missile. Martin Marietta Aerospace he worked for, I think. And he would contend that what we're seeing here is a fossil. And these are also fossils. And now it's very similar to what we see on Earth fossils. These are all his images that he's pulled out from, again, from the Curiosity. These are from the Spirit and Opportunity, not Curiosity, sorry. These images are from the Spirit and Opportunity missions, which have been running from 2004 to the present time. I'll see if we've got time to play the video clip from him. I'll play this.
Well, last month, a NASA scientist in Alabama stunned the world when he said he discovered evidence of alien life. His claim was based on fossil remains he supposedly found in a meteorite. The next day, however, NASA said their researchers' work was flawed and unreliable. However, claims of alien life and fossils are nothing new for NASA. For the past 7 years, they've been dealing with the Winsboro Man and his research. And his work may very well change our way of thinking forever. Ever since the Viking probe landed on Mars in 1976, NASA has been trying to find out if life once existed or if it still exists there today. 30 years later, in December of 2006,
today you will hear what many are saying may be the most significant discoveries to date.
NASA scientists released photographs that suggest there is life. Pictures that show water on Mars.
We can honestly talk about liquid water on the surface of Mars today.
The news was reported in the national media and was hailed as a major discovery. The only problem, another man says he made the very same discovery nearly 3 years earlier.
You came to the conclusion that there was water and life on Mars when?
The date when I was first certain of it was February 15th, 2004.
Charles Schultz looks and sounds like a modern-day Einstein. Using the Freedom of Information Act, he obtained more than 200,000 Mars images from NASA. And after thousands of hours of research, he came to some startling conclusions.
Many of the things that I've seen look very clearly like the recent erosion or presence of water, liquid water on the surface, and many of the images show what appear to be fossil organisms, marine fossils.
Right, fossils on Mars, and not just a few. Schultz says the planet is littered with them.
Right now, the planet has extremely thin air, very tough living conditions, but it is wet on the surface in many areas, and it is covered with fossil remains from marine organisms. Some of the fossils we found are seashells, and very clearly they are identical to the things we find on the Earth. This is a conch shell, apparently, found on the planet Mars, and this is one on the Earth. And you can see there's an absolute identical appearance to both of them.
Schultz showed me picture after picture.
This is a trilobite fossil,
all NASA images.
Opportunity, the rover found on the 158th day of its imaging.
And all of them compelling.
This clearly looks like water flow to me, and mud.
It is.
The rover, the Opportunity, these Mars crafts that have gone up there and literally have gotten stuck in the mud.
In many cases, yes.
Schultz's research has the potential to change the way we think about the universe. He's written numerous articles for scientific magazines and books on the subject. The latest is A Fossil Hunter's Guide to Mars. In it, he carefully lays out his research and conclusions.
NASA explained your findings.
Actually, they've ignored it. In the beginning, when I began posting a lot of my information and sending it to them as well, there was some interest, and my website had hits from 40 to 90% from Mars researchers, NASA particularly, and other things. But over time, that died off, and there was no response. So they actually pretty much ignored what I posted.
NASA Director Charlie Bolden won't speculate on the potential for water or fossils on Mars, but he's hoping the next rover mission, Curiosity, will answer those questions once and for all. It takes off this November. The first data is expected by the fall of next year.
We expect to make discoveries with curiosity. I don't want to, set great expectations. What we find will be different from what we found before. It will look at the soil of Mars. It's looking for any signs of microbes or microbial life there. It's absolutely incredible what it's going to do.
And when I pressed him on Schultz's claims of fossils on Mars,
I don't know. I wish I could say yes, I do, but I don't know. I really don't.
Volden referred me to a NASA scientist who's been working on the very same subject.
This activity, especially the fact that it's going on today, to me says that the mid-latitudes of Mars are one of the more remarkable places in the solar system.
Phil Christensen is well known for his work on Mars. Remember that December '06 announcement of water on Mars? Well, Christensen was there, and NASA's conclusions were supported by his research.
NASA's goal, long-term goal, is to land on Mars, collect rocks, and bring them back to Earth so we can examine them in laboratories or under microscopes and look for any evidence of fossils or any other evidence of ancient life on Mars. I'm very confident that that rover will make discoveries that will really change our thinking. Again, every time we look, we find an interesting place. There were clearly environments on Mars billions of years ago that were very much like the Earth, and it's very possible that life may have started there. Again, that would be a fantastic discovery, and that could be coming in the next year or so.
I think that they have been ready with this for a very long time. The first researchers on the Mirror team, the rover teams, included an oceanographer, a marine biologist who was looking at the images. And that's very telling in its own right.
Schultz believes disclosure will happen next year once the rover sends images back to Earth. It's something he says could have happened sooner, but didn't because of religious beliefs.
Many people allow their beliefs to dominate regardless of the facts. And it's not a stab at religion. This is just a presentation of the facts. People who have faith find a way to live with the facts.
You're dealing with science.
That's absolutely correct. You have to work with science and facts.
Is there life on Mars right now?
I do believe so, because nothing we know of would have sterilized the entire planet. Funguses, spores, bacteria could very easily still be in the soil today.
Well, despite his research, Schultz says he's not the person who first discovered life on Mars. He said that honor belongs to Viking mission scientist and current Arizona State University professor, Dr. Gary Levin. Levin believes he discovered microbial life from the soil samples taken from the 2 Viking missions from the 1970s. But NASA has never embraced those findings.
So, Charles Schultz has discovered the fossils there. You've probably never heard about that unless you've seen this talk before, or you've been looking at the same sites I have. But Charles Schultz has now taken down his website, his original website, which these images came from, has disappeared. He's got it on another website, but not in this form. So it's hard to find some of these images. Now, again, we get Curiosity rover images like this one. If we look at this thing here, in the middle, this is one of the images that Richard featured on the program that we did a few months ago. And this is taken on Earth. It looks like this is a fossilised creature with a spine. So are these vertebrae sticking out, or are they just rocks? Well, you take a look. I think that does look very much like fossilised vertebrae to me. I don't think it's a random rock formation because of the spacing and the angle that these are at. So I'm skipping through this quite quickly, for which I apologise, but this is all on my website if you want to find this. So we're going to look at some more interesting large-scale anomalies, because we've looked at some of the surface anomalies. There is another region of Mars which I'm not really going to mention in this talk much. It's been done to death by a lot of the researchers and people who've written books, Cydonia. But there's other lesser known anomalies, such as ones that were noted by Arthur C. Clarke in 2001. I might come back to Arthur C. Clarke if I get time. I'm quite serious when I say have a really good look at these new Mars images, Clarke says. This is on space.com, which is a popular astronomy website. Something is actually moving and changing with the seasons. That suggests at least vegetation, he said. Clarke repeated several times that he was serious about his observations, pointing out that he sees something akin to banyan trees in the Mars Global Surveyor photographs. And here's one such photograph from M0804688A. You can Google that and you'll get this image. And this is about a mile distance here, this blue arrow. You can't really get it back. So to Arthur C. Clarke, looks like banyan trees. But James Rice says, most of the images in question that I looked over are of dunes in the polar regions. They are beginning to defrost as winter draws to a close. The sand composing the dunes is dark and the frost is bright, thereby causing the spotted pattern as the dune defrosts. This is not vegetation, but rather the natural defrosting of dunes and sand sheets. I don't buy it, I don't know about you. Not with this structure here and these here. And there's another study which is very, very good. Alan Moen is also an amateur researcher. He took several images of these strange sort of ring shadows and he worked out that these were shadows. And he does this, he built a computer model around these images and he was able to show that the most likely cause for these was that they're actually trees. These were caused by trees. And I've got the whole 10-minute video in this, but I haven't got time to go through all of that. And it's called Rings on Mars. But again, I think his website has moved as well, or he's got deleted or something. So the video is still out there, I think. And now we're going to look at this contoured landscape. This was on my opening slide as well. This is from Mars Express. What's this terracing doing on Mars? By terracing, I mean these layers, these sort of levels here on this. And so that's from one angle. I think that's done with a computer model based on these images. We have a stereo camera on the probe to take stereo images looking down onto the surface. And this is one of those images. And well, it looks remarkably similar to something like this. If you notice, this region here is actually quite similar to what's down here. And then you've got these layers, these terraces. Something mining on Mars. What it looks like to me based on this image, and you can go and find that on the ESA website if you want. You can go and find that image. And what the hell is this? SP243004. This is 3 miles in length. The right angle, the T structure. What the hell is this? I've never seen that discussed on any science documentaries. That's on NASA's website, it's on the USGS website as well. People won't talk about this. And as you'll see in a minute, what the hell is this? I call it the golf ball dome. The Electric Universe people claim that this is a plasma formation. I don't agree. I do agree with their idea of rock formations being caused by electrical discharge, but I don't think this is one of them. It's too symmetric, and it's got this sort of pipe going up to the top of the crater. This was taken in 1998, this image by Mars Global Surveyor. I think it's a geodesic dome. I think it's an artificial construct. I can't prove that, obviously, but that's what I think it is. And this is McMurdo Station at the South Pole, and that's an aerial view of it. You can see, I found that on the forum, I didn't make that. You can see why I've used it there, that image. And this is 3.3 kilometres or 2 miles from the golf ball dome. I've got a little video clip here. Very interesting image, this, an image strip. It's going to work. It's going to work. How many people have seen any of those images before?
I've only ever seen one. I've never seen all five.
Now then, because I think that dome image is one of the most arresting images that I've seen from any of the space missions, I use it as an avatar. I'm going to go on forums, on Skype, YouTube, blah, blah, all those places. And the little story here was that I was talking to my brother on Skype. Going back a few years now. We need to just start to use Skype. And he's not really interested in any of this stuff. You know, he doesn't have much of an interest, but a very tiny passing interest perhaps. So he says, "Oh, Andrew," he says, what's that image you've got on your Skype?" And I says, my plan worked, because my plan is to make people curious and ask questions. He says, "What is that image?" So I says, "Oh, I'll just get you the link." So I asked him to click on the link, because I was expecting this page to come up when he clicked on the link. Because as you see, it says, a high-resolution imaging science experiment, the University of Arizona, from their website. Okay? So I was expecting the link that he clicked on to bring up that very page. When he clicked on it, he said, "Oh, I don't know what you mean." Because when he clicked on it, that's what he got. That is the image he got. And you can see if I click between these, crater with textured mound. Crater with textured mound, isn't that interesting? In central Acidalia planitia, blah blah, image number. Crater with textured mound in central Acidalia planitia. Where's it gone? They changed it. Now, if you go down to these links at the bottom and you click on the links and you explore these downloadable images, you will find that image. But they changed it from being the headline image to something completely, utterly boring. So to me, that is a cover-up right there. I'd say that's a cover-up. And so this is a zoomed-in image, and you can see more detail on this. It's got this pipe, whatever it is, going. I'll call it a pipe. I don't want it to. So what the hell is it? I've seen no discussion, no analysis. I don't know what this is. As I said, I think it's an artificial structure, but that's a no-go area for scientists. They cannot speak about such things. And this is just closer images of this. I call this thing a caterpillar. I don't know what it is. Why have we got all these regularly spaced fins or plates or whatever they are, or slabs? Very strange. Very, very strange. So this is going back over 10 years now when I first came across these two images. I think they're on Jason Martell's website, actually. He's got a website called UNXplained. I basically just got those two images, just as you see there, put them in an email, and I sent them to 42 geologists, right? 42 geologists. And I said, I just sent them the two pictures and tell them what they were. They could have been anything. They could have been children's toys or anything. And one guy wrote back, assistant professor at the American University. I received this response on the 18th of November 2004. These images look to me as the surface of a planetary body, not as terrestrial features. Could you please give an indication of the scale if you have it? Great. He replied. He's interested, he's curious. He hadn't seen the images, obviously. So there's the link I gave him, and as you see, it says IDAWR-USGS.gov. It's the USGS website that I sent him a link to. And I told him that I calculated the central image for the dome to be 500 metres across. And I gave him the image for the other one from Main Space Science Systems, which is the company which manages the images from Mars for NASA. He wrote back and he said, "These two images from the surface of Mars are certainly puzzling and have been floating around UFO web pages for some time. I am sorry, but I do not believe in big conspiracy theories and that the government is trying to hide something from us concerning Mars or any other planet." That's not what I asked him. I said, what are they? And I sent him the links to the USGS website, not to a UFO conspiracy website. So what the hell does he think he's, saying? And at the end of that spiel, he says, "Good luck with your investigations." Well, he's a flipping geologist, He's the one that's supposed to be working in the academic establishment to solve these mysteries of the creation of Earth and the planets and all this stuff. Not me. I'm just some guy with a website. I don't get paid in academia. Now, as Charles Schultz said, I have people from NASA coming up, and this is just a joke. It's complete. It really is funny. Somebody searched for news, life on Mars, right? And they came to my website, and they came from Cape Canaveral. National Aeronautics and Space Administration. Why are NASA coming to look at my website for news about life on Mars? What do I know about it? Same again, this was sometime later, a year later, still going back about 6 years. They came from the Marshall Space Flight Centre to look at my website.
Keeping an eye now.
Well, maybe, you know, some people would say that. I've certainly got other evidence like this, not on this topic, which suggests that's what they're doing, but that's what they went and looked at. Why are they coming to my website again? Yeah, I mean, you know, I could go off into all different areas with some of this footage from the space shuttle and stuff. Check it out, STS-75, STS-80, check out those two, STS-48. Make a note of those, go and check out the footage from those. After those, they encrypted all the footage. I'll skip through some rover pictures. Well, don't know what happened to that one.
Monolith, isn't it?
Could be. This is somebody's, looks like somebody's bike or scooter that's got buried. This is from the Curiosity rover, I think. Yeah, it is. I think it's only like about an inch across or something. What the hell is it?
You know, it's a space junk.
Don't know. Don't know.
Crashed into the planet.
I would doubt it like that, with that sort of arrangement. I would doubt it. But what is it? You can go. I've got the image reference at the bottom, so you can go and find it. And that was featured in Universe Today. This is one that Richard and I spoke about on the programme we did. This is panorama from Opportunity rover, 21st of May 2004. Nice little panoramic image, but what's this? Looks like that, doesn't it? Now, Richard got some email saying that this was actually, there's some other rocks like this, so he was claiming it was a piece of rock, but very, very strange. And as Charles Schultz said, and as we said about the moon landing photograph, the first footprint, how do you get this? Mars is meant to be dry, dusty, you know, sort of like the moon in that sense. But how are we getting these ridges? How are we getting these ridges? And it's not possible without moisture. And as you saw the evidence, they more or less admitted liquid water on Mars, but then they unadmit it, they go back on it. But it was even reported. Steve Squires says, the way in which the surface has responded is bizarre. It looks like mud, but it can't be mud. That's what he said. So it's not mud, obviously, because he said it wasn't. He's a mission commander, so he must know. Or mission controller, I should say. And this is also on NASA's website, 1979. This colour image is from NASA's website, I've got the link there. A thin layer of water ice frost on the Martian surface. A thin layer of water ice frost. Doesn't that mean there's water on Mars, NASA? Apparently. But that's what it should look like, of course. Because that's what Holger Isenberg reprocessed it. And then we've seen these images already, I'll skip over these. And then Richard Hoagland and Mike Barra, they pointed out this image, which they say they think is a sphinx. You've got this pyramid in the background, allegedly, and they think this could be a sphinx. This is from 1997 Pathfinder image. I don't know, it's a very interesting one, but again, if you look at the features, it is very, very curious. You can sort of see this, something vaguely resembling a headdress and the body here, perhaps. I don't know. Is it a random pile of rocks? Could be, but it's sure is curious. Probably going to have to skip over this. Yeah, I'll skip over this because we haven't got a lot of time. Australian Cardinal George Pell, he said of global warming, he said the Pope condemns the climate change prophets of doom, and he said the industrial military complex up on Mars can't be blamed for the global warming on Mars, because Mars has undergone global warming as well, as has several of the other planets in the solar system actually, or they've undergone significant changes in the atmosphere of Venus, but that's a whole other presentation. And Marcus mentioned all this website. They've got on Mars as well. I particularly, and I know that David Percy, as well as doing the Dark Moon book, has written a book called 2/3, isn't it? He's written a book, and he's written all about this. I haven't read the book, unfortunately. So you know, but this is basically, I made this image myself. This is a NASA image. Somebody's put some of these angles on it from Sardinia, the region that I mentioned earlier. And I simply sized that up. This is directly from the Google satellite view from Google Maps. Made them the same size, overlaid them. I did that myself and made this little animation in PaintShop Pro. So all I will say on that is that there is a story here we are not being told. I don't know what the story is. Maybe the story is in David Percy's book. Maybe I should read it to find out. But there is a story here that we are not being told. How are these geographical features corresponding? How is it possible? Why is nobody talking about this apart from people like David Percy? What is 1 mile on the Earth is 14 miles on Mars, apparently, from Solar. And this is directly from David Percy's website, which is that link there. Yeah, and I've mentioned a couple of times that we did this program. Richard D. Hall, he had been talking to a chap called Douglas Gibson, who's actually based in London, he sort of come to the conclusion that the rovers aren't even on Mars, they're on Earth somewhere. And he pointed out some interesting things, such as this Lenning, or alleged Lenning, in one of the photos. I haven't got the link here, but it's all in Richard D. Hall's program and the links from his program. And there are some very strange things when you look at them. Richard and Douglas suggest that why they colour the sky red is to make us think the rovers are on Mars, but actually they're on the Earth. If you look at where they tested the rovers, Devon Island is where they did some of the tests. Devon Island is the largest uninhabited island. It's about 300 miles long in northern Canada. And it's also got an impact crater there as well, which I didn't realise until Douglas told me. Let's see. Yeah, so they reckon the fossils could be just fossils in the ground on Devon Island. Liquid water, obviously, that's an obvious one. Landing the lander would be too difficult because something like Curiosity weighs over a ton. You need a very large parachute in the very thin Martian atmosphere to make that land successfully. Somebody's done some calculations on that. We may do that in a follow-up program. But regardless of all that, what I suggest you do if you're interested is watch the post-Curiosity landing press conference. This guy is heavily featured, Adam Seltzner, who was in charge of developing the so-called Sky Crane, which is the system which they use to land the rover. So, post-Curiosity landing press conference, give that a watch. Very, very interesting. It is very interesting. Yeah. So I think there are non-natural structures on Mars. Surface water ice was photographed 26 years ago in some detail. Dr. Gil Levin, creator of the life detection experiment, says his experiment worked. And there's evidence of biomarker gases. Photo colours being falsified. A number of recent rover pictures show evidence of soil moisture. Yeah, and civilization on Mars, potentially, I think that's possible. But the media never really focused down on the discoveries of water and methane, and they've essentially repeated the same stories roughly every 4 or 5 years. Okay, Phobos. Talk about this for a couple of minutes. It's basically one of the moons of Mars. The other one is Deimos, or Deimos. It was discovered by Asaph Hall in 1877, which is quite late in the calendar, actually. A lot of the bodies in the solar system of this size were discovered before then. And it orbits very close to Mars. It's almost in a perfectly circular equatorial orbit. Perfectly circular equatorial orbit. Why would that be? Why would that be? Orbits every 7 hours and 39 minutes. It's got these strange lines on it as well. It's got these lines here going down, and they intersect at right angles. Are these just lines caused by rocks rolling around in the microgravity and scraping the surface over, a few years or something when they get attached to Phobos? Well, maybe, but this is a much larger body called Ceres, which is 526 kilometres. It's the largest and the brightest asteroid of the asteroid belt. That's got these strange lines as well, so they're a bit of a mystery. But in the 1960s, Samuel Slofsky, he proposed that Phobos was actually hollow. Looking at its orbit and looking at the speed it was travelling, he proposed that it was hollow, and it was actually a spaceship, hence the equatorial orbit, which would be difficult to get by chance. But then, in 2009, precise mass determination of the nature of Phobos, and these are authors here published a scientific paper in the Geophysical Research Letter, so it's a scientific paper. We conclude, scientific letter, not full paper. We conclude that the interior of Phobos likely contains large voids. When applied to various hypotheses bearing on the origin of Phobos, these results are inconsistent with the proposition that Phobos is a captured asteroid. So what is it? They don't say. But because of these voids in it, why would it have voids inside the moon? It's a small moon. And now I'm not going to go through all of this, but the story is, and it's basically this is a false story, the Russian probe, Phobos 2, was going towards Phobos, I think in the 1980s, and yeah, 1988, and it was going towards Phobos, and the last photo that it took showed this missile coming towards it, and then the probe went dead. That was the story. So they were saying that something, they were implying that a missile had been fired from Phobos and it disabled the probe, as if to say, go away. Well, actually, you can clearly see from the original images, if you look at them, that this is a digital artifact. Because this is a sequence of images, the sequence, it's not a missile, it's actually a sequence of images, and it's probably just that the probe failed in some way, or it crashed into Phobos or something. But you can clearly see that this is a digital artifact if you look at these images, particularly on that one. Not a missile. Also, claim that this is a mystery, this strange UFO on the surface of Mars. It's not a mystery. It's a shadow of Phobos, because Phobos is very low down, and you can easily photograph the shadow from orbit, from one of the high-resolution cameras. But then we get this story in the Daily Mail a few years ago, that good old bastion of British psychological operations, and global psychological operations for that matter. Buzz Aldrin stokes the mystery of the monolith on Mars. And here's these images in the Daily Mail.
Habitation on the moon. We can visit other people with their habitation. We can keep track. If there's something very important to be developed from the moon, I'm not sure what it is right now. And I sure think we should identify what it is for America to make such gross expenditures again for human habitation on the moon. We can help. We can join with. Together, we can explore the moon and develop the moon. We should go boldly where man has not gone before. Fly by the comets, visit asteroids, visit the moon of Mars. There's a monolith there, a very unusual structure on this little potato-shaped object that goes around Mars once in 7 hours. When people find out about that, they're going to say, who put that there? Who put that there? Well, the universe put it there. If you choose it, God put it there.
So why is Buzz Aldrin going on about a monolith on Phobos? What is he trying to do with that? Where's he going with that? Who is this guy? I certainly don't know who the guy is. Yeah, so monolith on Phobos, and yet I've got some. I think I've got another video with pictures and stuff. I've not really got time to play it for short on time. Yeah, I've got this slide. This is also taken with the high-rise Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter images. So what is this thing? It is on Phobos. You can see it's completely different to the surroundings. It's actually white. What the hell is it? Again, no answers. We don't have any answers. Why would Buzz Aldrin be pointing this out? What's his agenda? Because he wasn't just doing it for fun. That much I'm pretty sure. And what happened with the Daily Mail is they muddled together. There's actually another monolith on the surface of Mars, and they muddled these two things together. This is the one from the surface, which is different to the one on Phobos, and that's the image reference there if you want to go and look for that. This one, I don't know where that came from, that's in the Daily Mail, could not find that image anywhere. I don't know where that is, it's not from that image, so I don't know where they've got that one from. But the Daily Mail story, in typical Daily Mail style, muddled together stories of monolith on Phobos and monolith on Mars. So I'm probably going to skip close to the end now because I've got I'm nearly up to an hour now. Yeah, if you're not familiar with this, this was disclosed a few years ago now. It's been known about since the 1980s. That you've got this persistent hexagon feature in the polar atmosphere of Saturn. What causes this hexagon? They claim to have explained it as some type of standing wave phenomenon or something. Somebody's reproduced it in a tank. But again, there's been a lot of changes going on like this. And this storm system, this is a picture taken with an Earth telescope. It's huge, this is about as big as the fucking Earth. It's just sprung up in the Saturnian atmosphere. Here's a high-resolution picture of the hexagon taken in 2012 from Cassini probe. So, what the hell is it? This made press, news.com.au. Conspiracy theorists confident photoshopped that NASA image is a cover-up, and there's evidence of this shown here. You can see the sort of brush marks here. And then this was also discovered quite recently. Rolf Olsen's composite image, May 2014. Taken from Voyager 2 images met in the 1980s, he reprocessed them, and this is what he discovered. A hexagon in the atmosphere of Neptune as well. So there's something going on with that. Richard Hoagland talks about hyperdimensional physics and torsion fields and stuff. Who knows? I don't know what it is. But again, it's a story we're not being told. It's not being looked at properly. Saturn, I've not got time to cover Saturn. Ring magnets of Saturn. I'm just going to turbo ride through Iapetus. This is from Richard Hoagland's article as well. Iapetus is the moon of Saturn. It was discovered in 1671 by Giovanni Domenico Cassini. The probe was named after him. Cassini observed Iapetus over a period of time, and every 40 days or so it seemed to disappear from view and then reappear 40 days later. And Iapetus has an unusual orbit. It's inclined to the ring system at about 15 degrees. That was a picture we had in 1981 from Voyager 2, and you can see we've got this dark patch here. Well, let's get a closer view. That's from Cassini, July 2004 on the right. And then you've got this thing here, taken in December 31st, 2004. What's this? It's actually 800 miles long, and it's about 8 miles high and 12 miles wide. It's an equatorial wall. That's a close-up of it. Hexagonal craters. These are all NASA images. That ridge there is 24 miles long. What's going on? I want to know. These are more observations by Richard Hoagland than those images. But strangely, he then, well, I won't tell you that story, but he kind of went off it and he tried to not talk about it later. And then he points out, Hoagland pointed out, you've got this angular appearance as if this is a number of plates. Is this a construction? Is it a modified moon? We don't know. That's a later image, which is even less interesting. Is this again some type of geodesic dome? This is Buckminster Fuller here. Invented the geodesic dome. That makes you think, doesn't it? It really does make you think. Very, very strange. George Lucas knows something. Or whoever designed this Death Star. I don't know who designed that, whether it was George Lucas or some art director. Let's see, so I've got time for anything there. Yeah, and Arthur C. Clarke. He actually, in 2001, he set the discovery of the monolith by Dave Bowman set at Iapetus. They changed it in the film. time to cover all of that. So I'm going to sort of skip most of it to the end. Soho images. Soho is the Solar and Heliospheric Observatory. It's not the District of London where you go to see various things. Most of these slides are sent to me from Germany. Soho has 2 cameras. Soho is at the Lagrangian point L1, a million miles from the Earth, approximately 1.5 million kilometres, where the gravity of the Earth and the Sun is equal, so it can sit there in the orbit. And the anomalies started cropping up on these images. These sort of craft were coming into these images. There's a story behind that. I haven't got time for that. Skip over some of these. What's this? What the hell is this? This image was from 2005. This is a NASA image. You can go and find it in the archive. What is this object and why are these things coming out of it? The chap in Germany that contacted me, he found lots of these images, lots of similar ones. And he sent me a whole PowerPoint for it. It's all on my website if you want to go and look. Hundreds of these images. And NASA, of course, claim that it's just people messing about with Photoshop to create these images or enhance things that aren't really there. There's loads of them. These things coming down. They'll say that they're cosmic ray tracers. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. Loads of them. These shapes, these anomalous shapes appearing on these images from NASA. Beams coming out again. These are put into reverse image so you can see the things better. These are all done by this German guy that I came in contact with. Loads of them. Going over several years. Hundreds of them. What are they? Now, I just want to finish off by showing you this. This is again from Soho. It wasn't very clear in here because there's quite a bit of ambient light, so you can either watch that on the internet, or I've got DVDs of this whole presentation for £50, got some on the table. And it was made by Peter Dunn, but you can get that from helioviewer.com. You can make that video yourself from the images in the archive. But what you were actually seeing was something which, relative to the Soho probe, was stationary in space. It wasn't a planet, it wasn't a star, and it wasn't a comet. Right? It's something that was probably in a similar orbit to the Soho probe itself. Now, when I showed this at the conference with Richard Dolan, who's a UFO author, if you don't know who he is, the only question Richard Dolan had about my presentation was whether I was sure that this was what I said it was, which I think is a space platform, which has got some type of cloaking technology to make it invisible. That was the only question that he had about my presentation, out of all the stuff that I have shown him, the stuff that I haven't. But the conclusion really of all of this, very quickly, let me give you the whole Mars conspiracy in a nutshell. It actually applies to all of the stuff that I've shown you, I think. I have no doubt that there is some really mind-blowing stuff going on Mars, or you could say in the solar system, and our governments know it. What they have to do is take people's minds off Mars. They send these rovers up there and they send back pictures of basically nothing, which is what they've been doing. The TV and the internet are flooded with these pictures of nothing. Soon the people get tired of looking at pictures of nothing and don't want to be bothered with Mars anymore. They trust that the government will make them aware of any important happenings on Mars should they occur. Of course, this will never happen. We, the taxpayers, paid for those rovers. We have a right to know when they were launched and how they landed. We have a right to see the pictures, so they give us 1 million pictures of nothing. Now we're so bored with the pictures that we really don't care anymore. They know we won't ask it questions anymore for fear of being bored out of our minds. And it's true. The space program, as presented to the public, is boring. You know, it's boring. And they'll give you these little hints and say, oh, there might be alien life. But they will never bring up things like Roswell or any of these other topics. And they will never connect it to that. You know, they will just never bring that up. So the whole of the public space program is, I think, a cover for the secret space program and the stuff and the things that you folks are interested in, which is why you're here today. And any funding that we want for this, with this sort of research or this sort of activity, forget it. You're not going to get it. You're not going to get it. Because the people that run the planet don't want you to know what's out there. So as I say, I've rushed through this very quickly. We're running over time. I wanted to try and keep it to an hour, which I've just about managed to do. There's some of the websites that I've used. There are lots more. You can, if you don't get a chance to ask a question now, please contact me through the website, and I'll endeavour to answer any questions. If anybody's got any questions now, then we can do those.
Well, I think for that, big round of applause. Any questions you'd like to ask? Question. Okay.
Does the Brookings Institute report still stand?
I guess it might well do.
The one that said, do not talk about ET life.
That seems to be, they seem to have taken that on board and done it, don't they? Really.
What was the question?
Does the Brookings Institution report still stand? When was that? In the 60s, was it, or the 70s?
59.
59?
Following the formation of NASA.
Yeah.
When they said that if they were going to find anything, or if they did find anything,
it might be a good idea not to tell anyone about it. Yeah. So that would fit in. Gentleman over there.
Yeah, I saw the program you're talking about with Rich.
Yes.
Looking at the
Mars
photographs from Mars being fake. I just wondered how can we trust any image that NASA sends out?
Well, we need verification, as Richard said on one of the programs. We don't really have any other verification. It's getting a little bit more interesting now because we've got an Indian probe that's gone to the moon. We've had the Chang'e rover from China going to the moon. So are we going to get verification? Well, so far we haven't really. We haven't got any recognisable verification of what NASA has claimed. So you know, ultimately, all we can do is we can get a telescope, we can look at the moon, you know, and beyond that, once you have to go and use somebody else's equipment and rely on them to interpret the results, you'll be beholden to them to be giving you the honest, you know, the honest results, the honest answers. Same with the photographs that Marcus showed of Apollo. Same with a lot of the photographs I've shown. That dome could be a total fake for all I know. Somebody could have, you know, made it out of plasticine or something. I don't know. I mean, I think it gets. I think the problem that I have said to Richard is that if you're going to cover up the secret space program with a fake, totally fake space program, I think that's really risky. I think some of it must be real. How much of it is real? Well, you know, when you start to ask that question, I think it becomes hard to answer properly.
You know, I run my own group. I've done for a couple of years, and I've been looking through a lot of these Mars images.
Yes.
People like, I think it's a claim set. I personally don't buy it. Your presentation's really good, but I think people don't you think that some people are just trying to look for something, and we have a human condition where we do find patterns. Yeah, I think don't you think most like good 71% of it is just that.
Yeah. A lot of the surface images that they're going through of these rovers, a lot of it, I can't see anything.
They want to see something.
Yeah, they want to see something, so they get this idea in there that they're going to prove the fakery, you know, because they can see, you know, like these other there are other creatures other than the lemming one. The lemming one seems pretty clear, but is it a lemming? Don't know. But yeah, there are a lot of other YouTube videos which I think are just, you know, totally inconclusive. You know, you can't really say what these people are saying with real hard justification. You know, so yeah, I would agree with you on that.
With the island from the Richard Eagle thing,
and
aren't those lemmings known to live there?
Yes.
Those whale bones are known to be there. And for the fact is now we're picking up images, it just kind of...
Exactly. There is sort of circumstantial evidence that the rovers could be somewhere like that because there are these walrus graveyards, allegedly. I haven't been to Devon Island, so I don't know. But what I'm told is that there are these walrus graveyards from when people used to hunt them, you know, 100 years ago, whenever that was. And as you say, the lemming is native to that island. It's one of the creatures that lives there, which is odd. You know, so, yeah, the potential is that, you know, they would do it. They would do it because a lot rides on it. You know, and again, particularly if you watch that, as I say, that Curiosity Press conference, it's very suspicious what some of the things they come out with. It really is. A bit like the post-Apollo press conference. If you watch the press conference after the Apollo 11 astronauts had landed, I mean, blooming heck, you know, you just watch it if you haven't watched it. Any other questions?
Just got one more. What do you think of the recent plumes that have been on Mars?
Haven't really studied that, but again, I think it's meant to be plumes of methane. So, you know, we're back to this methane, no methane, life, no life again. I don't really know. So I haven't really studied that in detail. I can't comment usefully on that.
Okay, thank you very much.